Good Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Harapsky. Breaking this afternoon, the teenager accused of killing 10-year-old Lily Peters in Wisconsin back in 2022 will not go to trial. A jury trial was set to start in November, but the Chippewa County Attorney's Office now says a resolution hearing is set for the end of August in the case. Carson Peters Berger, who is now 18, was 14 when police say he sexually assaulted then murdered Peters. Peters Berger was initially to stand trial as an adult after a ruling from the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, sexual assault, and child sexual assault. This afternoon, we have an update on a nearly 7-hour standoff on Cedar Street Southwest. This is in Isanti County. The video of BCA investigators on the scene, this is yesterday. Police tell us they received reports of a man throwing things out onto the street. They say the man ran back into the house when officers arrived and fired off several shots. Police say after 6.5 hours, an Anoka County SWAT member shot at the suspect, who was then taken into custody. BCA is investigating alongside police and the Isanti County Sheriff's Office. Right now, Edina's parks taking priority in a new set of public safety changes discussed by the City Council. The recommendations coming after gunshots were fired off in Yancey Park 2 weeks ago. The biggest goal of this summer strategy, as it's called, is to add more surveillance to Edina's 40 parks. Yancey already has a mobile security camera. Officials want to install another one. Those gunshots from 2 weeks ago involved dozens of people and no arrests have been made yet, which is why there's a focus on making sure that people feel safe at those parks. At last night's council meeting, the police chief said he'll allow cadets and reserve officers to patrol the area. He also recommends his department join the Violent Crime Reduction Unit. It's a state organization that already supports 12 other cities with 18 agents.
If we have a large-scale event that happens here in our community, we have access to all those agents and all those other cities that can come in and help us investigate crimes.
One order of business the City Council is still considering is whether they'll require a permit for gathering of 25 people or more in a park. It should be noted that crime stats overall in Edina are down this year, except for a small spike in auto thefts. This afternoon, police across the country and our state say that they're looking into a troubling trend: people destroying or damaging controversial automated license plate reading cameras. In Winona, police say all 8 of the city's flock cameras were stolen and cut off their poles in the last week. The southern Minnesota city, just the latest of about a half dozen in the last few months to publicly report damages. Police say not only is it a felony, but it's also making their work harder. Law enforcement says the cameras help solve crimes quickly, but others say that they're concerned about privacy and surveillance. Our Ian Russell has the latest.
Like cities across the country,
coming up on a year this October.
Prior Lake's police department using new versions of older tech.
Our stationary automated license plate readers, ALPRs, are with Flock.
And like cities across the state, seeing the same thing again and again.
We have 6 cameras, only 2 of them are active right now. 4 have been damaged at different points in time.
Prior Lake Police Chief Liam Duggan says those cameras have been down for months, and they're not the only ones.
Taking technologies away from them is making that job harder.
Automated license plate readers, mainly by Flock, have been damaged across the state in recent months. All 8 of Winona's cameras were cut down this month, 6 stolen or vandalized in Duluth this summer. A Faribault man was arrested last week for stealing one of the cameras in town.
It literally multiplies the eyes we have when we are trying to solve crimes.
Of course, not everyone is on board with these cameras. Cities around the metro have voted to completely remove them after pushback from residents, mainly over data privacy concerns.
You know, I'm all for putting the bad guys away. I've got a wife and baby at home, so I understand. But I do think it's definitely invasion of privacy.
Corey Johnson from Rochester pulled over to tell us his thoughts outside Prior Lake.
There's no telling what they're doing with that, you know. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
The second we realize the vehicle is not involved, it's gone. 30 days later, it's deleted. No one ever pays attention to it again.
Data that isn't part of an active investigation has to be deleted within 60 days, according to Minnesota law. A city not unlike any other, now balancing public service with public trust.
What I do want to do is solve crimes more thoroughly, with more detail, make fewer mistakes, and do it more quickly so that we can move on to other business.
Duggan says they're still working with Flock on repair costs for the damaged cameras, telling Kare 11 that he's trying to make sure none of the costs are placed on residents. He says the goal is to have Flock pay for it, but they're still working through it. New this afternoon, the FCC voting to eliminate a 22-year-old rule that put a cap on broadcast television ownership. This affects the very company that owns us right now, Tegna, and the bidding company Nexstar. According to that rule, the companies could not own stations that reach more than a total of 39% of the U.S. TV audience. Now the FCC says the ownership limit will be decided on a case-by-case approach. This move could pave the way for more corporate consolidation in the news business, and it comes as the nation's largest owner of local television stations, Nexstar, is seeking to acquire the company that owns Kare 11, Tegna. That deal is currently on hold after 8 state attorneys filed an antitrust lawsuit. If it moves forward, Nexstar and Tegna stations combined would reach at least 60% of U.S. households. New today, a Senate panel voting along party lines to hold Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress. This comes after Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right more than 100 times last week, refusing to answer any questions about how he handled the COVID-19 pandemic. Republicans argued the constitutional protection doesn't apply since Fauci was pardoned by President Biden last year. Fauci says Republicans wanted him to say something that could land him in jail. New updates today on a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Officials in Iran and Oman say they're putting the final touches on a plan coming tomorrow. The deal would reportedly give Tehran control over ships entering that strait. NBC's Keir Simmons reports from Qatar.
Hey there, things are on a knife edge here, with President Trump saying that we should know soon. The Iranian Foreign Ministry saying that a draft agreement between Oman and Iran, so those are the two countries on either side of the Strait of Hormuz, is being reviewed. Now, that agreement will likely set out how the waterway should be managed. One controversial question is whether it will allow Iran to charge vessels for passing through that crucial shipping lane. The Trump administration has been clear that it is opposed to that. And of course, millions of Americans are waiting for news, knowing that whatever happens will have a real impact on how much you pay at the pump. Meanwhile, President Trump overnight saying that despite Iran's denials that it is in negotiations with the United States, that he was contacted by Iran over the past weekend and asked not to go forward with strikes on Iran that he says would be worse, and these are his words, than World War II. President Trump says Iran's nuclear capability will be addressed in a second stage, but Vice President Vance suggesting that it will be a slow process. In his words, it will be messy, and all of that assumes that we will get an announcement. It is also possible that they don't get to the finish line, and there are concerns here in the region that if that happens, then there will be another escalation this weekend. Guys?
Back at home in less than a week, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is going to release his budget proposal for next year. However, those who've been briefed on it tell us that it includes big cuts, layoffs, and property tax increases. Here's what we do know. Right now, the city's facing a $33 million budget gap. To help close it, the mayor's looking at laying off more than 100 city employees, the city's first major layoff in 16 years. Property taxes will also see a double-digit increase, between 11 and 13%. City Councilmember Michael Rainville says he'll take Mayor Frey's lead when it comes to cuts.
You know, he knows the city departments better than anybody. I know he's been in a lot of conversations with department heads. These are really important conversations about the future of our city, not just next year's taxes, but going out after that, because we're in a financial crunch.
The mayor isn't planning on commenting on his budget proposal until his speech next week, but a city spokesperson tells us that he's still working through his final decisions. Got an update on the Salmonella outbreak in Minnesota that's linked to jalapenos served at Chipotle. Federal officials now say the outbreak is expanding. There are now more than 300 people sick in 27 states. The most cases are here in Minnesota and Colorado, both states reporting 110 cases. CDC says 36 people have been hospitalized, but so far no deaths. Chipotle has removed those peppers supplied by California-based Coast Citrus distributors. We're also learning Qdoba has removed the jalapenos from its menu. The CDC says Coast Citrus has agreed to issue a recall. Stick with us. We got more news and weather. It's coming up after the break.